Hey everyone, my name is Charles Kim and I'm the SE at Indeni. I'm going to give you a very detailed demo of how Indeni behaves and what are the value of our customers of using Indeni. Now, I want to do this by setting some pretense and some agenda items. The first thing is to understand how Indeni works. The reason why is because the value of the way Indeni functions is what helps us determine the value of our customers today. So we'll go over that, and we'll go over particularly the use cases and who really gets the value out of the Indeni system. When you're talking about our customers, whether it's any of the Fortune 100, there's definitely a lot of different teams within the security organization that use Indeni for different purposes. So we'll go over them as well. If there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can go to our website at indeni.com to get more information. All right, so let's go ahead and start. The purpose of Indeni, or the goal of Indeni, is to analyze any sort of data that's necessary to take action on a device. And by action, I mean understanding proactively what are things that could help prevent issues happening. A good example of this could be something as simple as proactively tracking if anyone's doing TCP dumps for too long. Now, how Indeni is capable of doing this is actually interesting because underlying the platform is a system that's actually bundled with a bunch of scripts. Now, each of these scripts are designed to do a lot of different things, and we actually have them designed to identify different risk indicators regarding the manageability of a checkpoint device. It helps you identify if there are certain problems, like, for example, the script I pulled up allows you to track the NTP servers that are in use and validating if those NTP servers are consistent across all your devices. So the goal with Indeni, or how it works underneath it, is it's a system that runs each of these scripts consecutively for 24/7. And in doing so, it is able to identify issues that happen in transit, whether they're at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. at night, 4 a.m. in the morning, and an issue arises in the middle, and an engineer gets pulled in to identify what the root cause is. Oftentimes, what we've seen is when you're doing a root cause exercise, you're manually digging data through the CLI, looking for data that's really hard to reach, that's not quite accessible through SMP or syslog. And oftentimes, it's data that could help you drive to the final decision in terms of understanding what to do and how to address the problem. What Indeni does is that it takes into account all those different kinds of commands, bundles them in individual scripts, provides intervals in which they should run, and dependencies on what types of devices they should run, so that Indeni out of the box knows how to do all of this without really taking a lot of configuration or effort out of our customers to utilize it. What effectively you get is a system that out of the box provides you that proactive analysis, and all you need to provide is really a host name and an IP address. And once you do that and you add the device, and then it does all their hard work for you. So instead of having to configure and try to figure out and sift through the raw data, and then it will take that on its back end and provide you several mechanisms in which you can consume that information that you get. The first and most common use case that we're leveraged is for the alerting purposes. And this actually takes into account for different kind of customer profiles that we usually work with. Generally speaking, we're leveraged a lot in SecOps or in security operations or 24/7 operations. And we're used to provide the proactive alerting to the teams. I'll tell you why in a little bit. We're also used by the security engineering team for other use cases. A lot of times it tends to be around planning for future deployments or architectures, and maintaining consistency across their checkpoint infrastructure and staying ahead of some of the challenges they may run into. When it comes to the alerting mechanism or how we identify issues, we provide it in the form of a dashboard that tells you these things. And if you dig into some of these alerts, what you'll notice is a couple things. Number one, we'll give you context of why we're bothering to even inform the end user. We automatically associate a severity level, all of which is configurable, and we provide remediation steps as well as articles directly from Checkpoint. And the idea here, or the use case here, is really it's really focused around standardizing the knowledge around how to manage a checkpoint device, not from a policy management standpoint, but from just a device manageability standpoint. Are any of your licenses going to expire? Are contracts coming up pretty soon? or does the software you're using have an end of support that's coming up fairly soon? That's just one aspect of it. We also focus on trying to identify those leading indicators where the issue is happening. Like, for example, I can help identify our customers if the upgrade service engine may have crashed on a Linux system. We do this by tracking each of those critical processes that are pertinent to the firewalls or the checkpoint device's functionality and provide this in an alert. Again, you'll see a lot of that information provided here. And what you'll also notice is that there's a resolved headline on these alerts. Now, the benefit of Indeni is that it continues to run the commands 24/7, constantly validating if issues are persisting or outstanding, or if they're just no longer a problem. What the value that our customers get is not only the proactive awareness, but the automatic resolution or closure of the tickets whenever an issue is fixed. And that way, if you go into the Indeni system, you go to the all statuses and you change to unresolved, you immediately get understanding or context of what issues are outstanding. Like, for example, a couple of my checkpoint devices were deployed without an NTP server configured. All right. I can go ahead and issue a request from an operations guy can send a request to security engineering to go ahead and provide or configure those NTP servers in a separate incident ticket. So as you can see, it definitely improves or helps with the workflow internally and allows customers to stay ahead of some of these challenges. Now, amongst the use case of proactive alerting, one of it is really signing off a device to be moved into production from lab. How do you know a device is ready for production? What are the parameters you should be looking at, outside of the policies that really determine if this device is not going to be at risk, right? And not necessarily is a problem about the checkpoint device itself. It's maybe more so of, was it deployed correctly? Did it follow a certain specific pattern that's approved or recommended by security engineering? And if not, is there a change release mechanism that can help prevent the issues surfacing in production and actually fix them before they go? And this alert where it says no NTP servers configured is definitely valuable in those kinds of scenarios. We also have scenarios where we help identify issues in transit. Let's say, for example, cluster fails over, or maybe there isn't actually any clustering mechanism because there's insufficient number of cluster members available. And then it would help you track those things, whether or not they're happening at 1 a.m. in the morning or, on a regular work schedule. Having that information, providing that kind of context to operations has been really valuable because they're not having to pull in an engineer to identify what the root cause is. They can immediately look at an alert and understand what it is that they're looking for. And oftentimes, they rarely have to log into the device directly. So that being said, that's definitely one use case of how Indeni has been valuable for our customers. Now let's talk about other scenarios. Let's say you're an engineer and you're using the Indeni platform. You've got a couple angles that the team can really get value on. For example, you can help plan for the future with your checkpoint infrastructure. You can understand whether or not you're due for an upgrade, whether or not you're running into load issues. You can triage all without having to actually access the device directly by using the Indeni system. And what I'm showing you right now is an example of that. One means of extracting that raw data is to provide some of that proactive alerting, but there's also the ability of collecting that data into our database and representing it from a historical standpoint. And right now, I'm actually looking at the load average, the CPU, and the connection count over the last day of one of my R8020 gateways. That way, I can compare and kind of correlate what are the behaviors I'm seeing, such as some of these connection spikes that I'm seeing, which frankly are not that high, maybe attributing to some of the load or the CPU that I'm expecting or I'm seeing. It also helps in other scenarios. Let's say you've proposed a deployment for a customer, and they want to see it in action in a POC, maybe with some synthetic traffic, and they want to see how the device stands up. With Indeni, you can get that information all in a single place because it'll extract that information over time. You'll see how the connection trends are going, and you'll see things like the load average and CPU utilization. Now, it's not just limited to that. We can look at anything from disk usage, the kernel memory, the ARP utilization, or the NIC bandwidth usage. And when we're talking about NIC bandwidth, we really could look at just the physical interfaces. We can look at the VLAN trunks. We can look at bonds, the sync traffic, the management traffic, all of the above. So it's really become sort of a single pane of glass for helping get visibility on the performance of the device. Now, there's other use cases for leveraging Indeni for engineering. It's great that Indeni is getting very thick into the weeds with the alerts and providing a way for operations to stay ahead of the curve. How does engineering stay ahead of it too, from a higher level standpoint? How can engineering prioritize what kind of tasks need to be done to address the problems every week, whether or not an incident ticket's generated for them? And Indeni has what we call reports that allow you to effectively rank your devices and tell you what are the concerns that we're seeing across them. Whether, for example, we've seen some devices to be considered high risk because they haven't been communicating, or maybe they have high disk issues, or maybe it's something regarding high availability, and we think that maybe you're at risk of an unsuccessful failover. And we can help you determine that based on, for example, the fact that the clustering mechanism may have failed, there may have been inconsistencies in the cluster configurations, or maybe the bond interfaces are not working as you think they do. There's other views that we help provide, such as regulatory and security risks. Are you using SMP version 2? Is a community string public? Are there multiple attempts of trying to log in with incorrect passwords? There's a lot of different angles from there. And so engineering definitely can leverages this on a regular basis by scheduling this report to be sent out first thing Monday morning. Then they look at this report and help understand, all right, these are the devices I should really focus on from a device management standpoint, right? Maybe there was a change window and not all the configurations were applied both on the active and the passive member. And then he just pulled this up as a report, and it helps me stay ahead of that curve. So that way, if I ever run into a case where I have a failover, I know for sure that I've addressed it thanks to this report. Now that brings up to the next point here. It's one thing to look at performance metrics. It's another thing to help prioritize devices. It's also a really valuable asset for both engineers and operations that Indeni kind of acts as a filter of all the commands that you'd have to leverage to collect the data, and provides it in an easy way. Now, I'll give you an example of this. Since all the certificates on on Checkpoint are usually managed by the management server, we can extrapolate that. We can collect all the certificates in use. We can provide you all the expiration dates. We can also then look at other parameters that are pertinent to the management server. Is the log utilization high? Are there any configurations or scenarios where you want to get a certain value from the CLI, but want to pull it up across all your devices at once? You can do an actual report of those configuration statuses and get that in a form of an Excel file. So let's say I wanted to pull up the certificates and the expiration dates for all my management servers. Effectively do that right here by then generating it in this manner, and that's it. That's all the time we have for today. If there's any questions, please feel free to go to indeni.com and reach out to us. My email is charles@indeni. If there's any questions on the technical side, I'd be happy to help. As always, thanks for being on this call, and we'll see you soon.